dignitaries, members of Nigerian South African Chamber of Commerce, ladies and gentlemen. This topic, building future-proof leaders, or how to equip your workforce for changes and disruption, is a topic which is not only very relevant today in Nigeria or in South Africa, but it is extremely relevant universally everywhere. And it's like, for me especially, because of my work, I am fortunate to come across various organizations who are at the leading edge of technology, change and disruption, to gain some first-hand insights of what they are doing to equip their workforce currently. And hopefully I'll be sharing some of those insights here. And I believe and I hope that all these things could be interesting for all of us here. When it comes to learning today, learning is not just what we did in school and colleges, it's a continuous journey, isn't it? And because learning is a continuous journey, I want to bring home the point that there are two sources of learning, right? Two sources of learning. One source of learning is learning from the past, learning from our experience, learning from what has happened so far. And we are quite good in learning from this source, because from school, colleges, universities, we've been groomed to learn from the past, learn from our experience. And we have, and this source of learning has done good service to us, because it has provided us the context, the different frames of references on which we have based our decisions to navigate today, the challenges that we face. And it has done good. But the problem is now that the pace of change has accelerated very, very much now. Previously, the change used to occur, let's say, once in 40 years or 50 years, and that was all right to learn from the past. But today, this source of learning has become redundant, because by the time you learn, you gather your experiences of what happened in 2019 and 2020, the next change is already on your doorstep, and that change is very different than the one which happened 2 years ago. Change is happening now almost every year, sometimes even more frequently than that. So that's why it's important that key organizations today, they have found the way to learn from the emerging future, which is the second source of learning. Learning from sensing the emerging future and actualizing the possibilities of the emerging future. You might see that in 2019 or 2020, when the COVID-19 disruption hit us all, Skype did not do well, but Zoom really zoomed in. And so many people, every point of disruption, you will see some organizations have leveraged it very, very well, while many other organizations have become extinct and they are no longer viable anymore. And most of us think that it's just because these organizations just happen to be at the right place at the right time. Is that the case? Or those organizations were ready and they could already had sensed the emerging future, and they had equipped themselves and their workforce to leverage that future, right? So that's what we are going to discuss. Hope you find that relevant for you and for your organization. But before we get into the learning from the future, I would also like to just share with you a broad framework of how top organizations, or within in Lagos, in Nigeria, in South Africa, but I will draw from my experience in the US, in India, in some of the Asian countries that I have had the privilege to gain experience in those organizations. How do they organize their structure, the system, to equip their workforce, right, so that they are up on the game? Usually what happens when you hire a new person in your organization, right? You hire that person because of their qualification, because of their skills of a particular type, right? A function that they need to perform. So, for example, if the information technology department in your company wants to hire a new person for doing coding and programming, then the person, once it's hired, his or her job responsibility, 90% of the responsibility will be to do programming and coding, isn't it? Then the same is true if you hire somebody in accounts department. Person is going to be doing what they are being hired for. At least 90% of their KPIs and KRAs. If you hire a person in sales team, right? Maybe you look at their qualification, you look at their track record of past success, and you hire that person, and now you're going to put them in a team of sales people, and they have a clear budget to achieve by the end of the year in top line revenue, which means that they are actually contributing to what they've been hired for. And usually that is what is their domain, what is their functional skill, is what they perform. 90% of their KPI is about that particular specialized skill that they bring on board. And therefore, for the kind of training and learning and development they need from the organization is about that particular domain. You know, it's not constant. Technology is changing, times are changing, new practices are coming in. So you just provide them those upgrades and update their skills, update their knowledge. Many times we do it through e-learning mechanism or knowledge management systems that exist in our companies. We also have professional certification programs and tests that are conducted in almost all disciplines today. And also there are professional bodies that supply to this need. For example, ICANN is a professional body for chartered accountants in Nigeria. Insurance has a professional body called CIIM. And similarly, different professions have professional bodies that provide those upgrades, those latest knowledge updates and skills enhancement. So we are doing pretty well on this area to manage the frontline staff, to manage those people who are domain specialized. The problem begins when one fine morning, maybe not such a fine morning, the HR department calls you and tells you that because you've been doing very, very good as an individual contributor and we identified you as a potential leader, we are promoting you to become now a team leader or a manager of a department. Now, it's good news, but the problem is that your job role, your role expectation has completely changed. Of course, you are still the head of the department. You know, imagine you've been promoted as the head of an actuary department. You better know actuarial sciences. If you are promoted as the head of accounts department, you need to still know accounts or law department. But what is now become more important for you is to hire the right kind of people, to manage the right kind of, get them motivated, to make your processes more efficient and change them and streamline them and finally to deliver the goods on time, isn't it? And so you're responsible for everything. Imagine in this hotel, there's a person who joins this hotel as a chef. And his specialization is that he does, let's say, continental food very, very well. So he's been doing this excellent work for last 5 years, 6 years, and one day they promote him as a sous chef, right? Or chef de partie. Now this man is not only responsible for making continental food alone, but he has to design the food packages and he has to go out and meet clients and understand their requirements. Maybe some airlines is buying food from them for their kitchen, or some of the other vendors buying, so they have to understand their requirement. This man knows how to go into the kitchen and cook continental food. He has no idea how to deal with the clients and get there. You know, they have to deal with the procurement department, they have to deal with the finance department. They have to manage a team of chefs inside the kitchen, secure the quality of their output. Is he trained for all these things? Many people who have been star performers as an individual contributor struggle because of the lack of know-how or specialized skills required to perform these functions. And that's the reason why most of the organizations, they give them training in things like strategic management. If the companies are not giving training in strategic management, I've seen many people at this level, the managerial level, they go out to let's say Lagos Business School or INSEAD, if they have some money, and they go and do an MBA from those schools, right? But even if they do MBA, that cannot replace the need for an organization to provide them the exposure and know-how into all of these different areas. So we provide them training into things like competency-based interviewing, how to interview, how to hire people, situational leadership, so how to manage in different situations, how to secure quality. So there's a training programs, things like Six Sigma, so they understand what is quality. Professional patterns of management, a grid model from Martin and Blake, or task and effort model. So all of these are very relevant for managers to be able to perform their function. I hope that's making sense to you so far, right? Now, out of all of these, after performing these functions for 10 years, 12 years, some of the people get promoted at a leadership level, right? So depends on the size of the company. Generally about a company of 500 to 1,000 employees. This team is about 7, 8 people, the top brass. This is the leadership team. And the expectation, the job expectation, the role expectation from the leadership team, again, are very, very, very different. And believe you me, and you can ask some of our leaders, that is not that the leaders have just come and the day they get promoted as a CEO, as a MD, or as an executive director, some magic wand and all the skills and all the knowledge comes into this. It doesn't happen like that. But the role performance required of them at this level is to provide role modeling, to provide values in the organization, to provide the vision and the foresight necessary for the company to go to the next level, to be able to have the buoyancy and agility within the organization so they can rediscover themselves and respond to change and disruptions in the market forces. This is a huge responsibility. Their functional competency, their managerial competency does not account for more than 10% because 90% is role modeling at this level. So I'm just taking a pause here for a minute. And although we are going to get into a question and answer, maybe some time for question and answer session after this, but still I'm just taking a pause at this moment so that everybody can sort of absorb what we have discussed so far before we move on to the next point. Okay, if you have any questions, yeah?
So in the model you've discussed, and the slides are coming up now,
yeah.
So far you focused on the learning from the past aspects. That's my understanding of what you've said. And what I wonder is if you would also tell us a little bit of the drawbacks of that model. Now, you've said sometimes it gets antiquated, but surely it can't be all that bad, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all about what the functional roles are, and some of these things are based on manuals, So would you say that it's completely out of date to rely on that model?
No.
Or do we need to think of a fusion? Thank you.
Okay, thanks for this question. It's a very relevant question. I'm not saying that all this is outdated. In fact, this is very, very key right now. How we learn from the emerging future, by sensing the emerging future, is something that will happen within this model, within this system, when this system is become very buoyant. And we are going to get there in a short while. But before we get to that point, I want to ask you a question. I don't know how many of you can read the question written there. And this most organization identify their set of core competencies by asking this question or some version of this question. The question there is that what skills, behaviors, and attitudes do leaders need in order to succeed in this organization, right? What skills, behaviors, and attitudes do leaders need in order to succeed in this organization? Now, this question has a flaw. There's something missing in this question. I want to ask you, any one of you can guess what is missing in this. When an organization wants to identify their set of core competency, this is the question they're asking. And I'm saying this is a wrong question. So what's wrong with this question? Let me give you a clue. The tense is wrong. That's the clue. Yes, sir? The need. Okay. Let me hear some more responses. Thank you. Yes, sir? What will they need in the future? Absolutely. You got it. So that's the question should be, what skills, behavior, and attitude do leaders need in order for this organization to succeed in the future? Right? So we are actually asking the wrong question to begin with, and we supply to the current needs. We are so busy catering for today that we generally don't have time to focus on what's coming next. Look at if you go to a bookstore today, you get thousands of books, right? I've just got a few, 4 or 5 books here, my favorites, but otherwise you know there are thousands of books on this topic. What is the thing which is very common in all these books? So if you look at this book called Light Footprint Management, I'm sure some of you who have read this book, especially during 2020, 2021, when it was very popular, it's all about how the American military and Chinese military strategies are applicable to our corporate world, right? Of not building deep foundations, but rather having some sort of tents that they can fold up and move to the next place very quickly. The culture map tells us about the globalized world, right? So how one culture interacts with another culture, and what are the best things in each culture and how to intermingle to get the best out of this. Blink by Malcolm Gladwell talks about, don't worry about too much analytics, right? When you take a decision, take it in from the gut, in a moment, in an instant, act then. That's Blink. Similarly, the mindsets talk about something called as a growth mindset. The author explains very well that for leaders how the growth mindset is a very key in any field. First Break All the Rules by Malcolm, that's from Gallup, and No Rules. So the only rule is there's no rule, right? Predictable Success, Theory U, Homo Deus, the second book by Yuval Noah Harari. First book was Sapiens, was very, very interesting. The second book talked about the history of the future, which is even more interesting to read. And then Design Thinking, and all of these books, if you know what all of these are telling us. Not only these, but thousands of other books. They're telling us that conventional thinking, conventional wisdom, conventional methods are obsolete and outdated. There are no rules now. Well, we don't know what the future is going to be, right? So if you ask me, so nobody knows what Nigeria will look like in 2050, right? As you can see that Aiko Plaza in 2050. Mr. Kadri, the tallest one there in 2050, right? So nobody knows the future. What is it going to be? Not only in Lagos, not only in Nigeria, but all across the world. But one thing we know for sure, that is not going to be the same. Aiko is not going to be the same company in 2050, right? Nigeria is not going to be doing the business in the same way as they are doing now. It's going to be very, very, very different than what it is today. So what is going to help us in getting there? What is going to help us to get there through all those disruptions, right? See, the disruption that has happened in the last decade, it has already started, the digital disruption, which led to things like Jumia, e-commerce rise in Nigeria, which led to so many more disruptions, right? We saw the revolution happen in the way people make payments. And so many fintech companies and now insurance tech companies came up and they disrupted the marketplace. The digital transformation, digital disruption also made it very different the way we respond to the way we apply our free will, right? As of now, you may think that you are very free as a customer, but sometimes you may not realize, but Google knows more about you than you know about yourself, right? Facebook knows more about you than your spouse knows you, right? And they are using all this information to guide our decision making, sometimes to even manipulate that. This is already happening, isn't it? My Spotify tells me what I should listen to. Netflix will tell me what should I watch, right? Amazon will tell me what should I read and what should I buy, and so on and so forth. So Google Map will tell me which route should I take. Even if I'm used to taking the same route, one day I did not listen to Google. It was saying turn left, I turned right, and I reached office late. The next day, I didn't dare not to follow Google Map. I said, let me follow, and I reached on time. So what will happen after a few months that you're just following Google Map everywhere, you might even lose the sense of direction and yourself you may not have. And that's when the Google Map has already taken over, right? That's digital. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Because what they say is biotech disruption, which is now when your algorithm meets biotechnology, the disruption, right now this disruption is still outside the skin, right? They have not started to scan our eye movements, our facial expression and subtle nuances on our body language. They have not scanned it yet, but they're very much getting there by that Apple Watch that we love to wear and by so many other. So they know. By the time they have the camera on us, you can't hide anymore. So they would know. So right now we're just asking Google which way to go, which way to take to reach office. Later on we'll be asking Google everything. Because internet or Google would know more about us. They will understand us better than we understand our own self. For biology scientists, feelings and emotions are nothing but neurological chemical reactions. That's it. So when it's reduced to a chemical reaction, they can track it. And that is coming in this decade very fast. So there are so many more disruptions that are happening, and organizations are gearing up to become ready to leverage, to flourish in these kind of disruption. So a very important point here is that success of an intervention depends on the interior condition of the intervener. You know, they say the soil in Nigeria is very fertile. You put a plant anywhere, it just flourishes. Very green grass grows here, right? The same green grass may not grow in Egypt or in Syria, but in Nigeria it's fertile. It is in the same way you see one intervention you do in two different companies. In one company, it just gives you very good results, while in another company, it just gets suffocated, right? For example, let's say a quality movement. I'm sure KPMG has a lot of experience in this because the same intervention if they do in two different companies. In fact, the father of the quality movement, Edward Deming, right, was not such a hit in Detroit, the place where he belonged, but Japanese loved him, right? So because the interior conditions, by interior condition I mean the kind of environment that exists inside the company. The level of trust people have in each other, the sense of belonging they have for the company, the level of engagement employees have towards the work, right? The kind of discussions they have, the level of conversations that they have in their meetings. These are the indicators of the interior condition of an organization. And success of any intervention will depend on this. Why I'm talking about it is because these are the things we can influence as leaders today and equip our workforce to be ready for the disruption tomorrow. Now, I'm going to give you the 3 C's, right? 3 C's of how to sense how to equip your workforce to learn from the emerging future. And as I already said, there are 3 C's. Can somebody take a guess what are those 3 C's? What those 3 C's are? That will help you to learn from the emerging future. I said they're all 3 of them start with C. Change, okay, that's a very good guess. What else? Yes, sir? Courage, very right. What else? Okay, let me just give you this. The first one is called, oh, you said it. Oh, sorry, my bad, I didn't hear. But yes, you are absolutely correct. You know why? Because now, in the digital age, why should anybody be curious? When the answer of everything is just a click away, right? Curiosity has dipped. Most of the people today have become very, very less curious. I don't know, the attention span has narrowed. Today I see my own kids, they just go through the rigmarole of study. They're not coming through as a curious about something. And this curiosity is the key to innovation. You know, you see anybody who's doing very well or who has done very well in their own field, you will see a very curious mind. And curiosity happens, look at this, the open mind, right? So for curiosity to exist in your organization, so among your people, among your staff, you have to approach it with an open mind. So what they need is to open their mind. If your mind is already closed, what I mean by closed mind is when you feel that you have all the answers, you know everything already. If you feel that you know everything already, you no longer are curious to know anything more. If you look at historically, the European countries made huge progress in last 300 years. While previous to 300 years, all the Asia, South America, or African region, they were leading a much better life, right? Much better life in terms of quality. But it was Europeans who learned about science and technology, industrialized, and they made huge progress. You know why? Because most places, like in India, we felt we know everything. We have our God, we have a religious book, and that's the best book in the world. It has all the answers. If you know this book, you don't need to know anything more. And that is it, right? So once you feel that you don't, so while the Europeans thought that they don't know, once you acknowledge that I don't know, is when you become curious to know more and try out something different, you know. The danger with disruption is more for the organizations that have succeeded in the past. The new startups or the small companies,
they're just starting, they do very well during disruptive times because they don't have the baggage that I know everything already. They are still defining themselves. But if you have to redefine yourself, it's a huge, very, very tough job for any organization, especially the one which has achieved success in the past. Curiosity is the first element. The next C, right, is called creativity. The creativity will come not with logic. So not with open mind, but with an open heart. You see, people like small children, they are much more creative than us adults, isn't it? You know why they are more creative, generally? Is because the small kids are emotional, they have feelings. And they see a rainbow, they're excited. Wow, Dad, look at the rainbow. And we adults, we are looking in our WhatsApp messages. In the rainbow, yeah, it's fine. I have seen enough. You know, somewhere we lost that feelings, the emotions in everything. And he, as you rightly said, when the national anthem was played and you stand up, you felt good, right? At least you did. Most of us do, right? We feel so good, and that's a feeling. It's an emotion that we attach. Similarly, when we go for work, when you go to an organization, your company, your work, are you just going there to just because it's your job? Right? You're doing it because of the pressures from your boss or from your organization? Or is it that you're going there with a curious mind and with feelings, with emotions, with an open heart to go there and do my work better and better and better? So that is an environment which will lead to creativity. So, you know, while I'm discussing you, I know that you are thinking, you're already auditing your own, the environment that exists in your own organization as of now. And the last C is called courage, which somebody rightly guessed. And the courage is to try out something new. Generally, a person who has just joined the organization might come up and give you a new idea. But what the other people will say, you sit down, right? We know how things happen here. So we are not very much open to try out something new, isn't it? Because we are a little conservative about our approach. We don't want to take risk, and therefore new ideas are out of the window in any meeting. We just want to do more of the same thing that has led to success in the past, learning from the past, right? And we therefore fail to sense the emerging future. Courage relates with open will, a willingness to try out something new, a willingness to take a little bit of risk, because with risk goes the rewards, right? So I'm going to also give you last 2 more minutes, and in this I'm going to give you a framework that you can use to even see where your organization right now is and what you need to do. You see, there are 4 fields of conversation. This is from MIT. And it's a technology university, so they like to call it a field, as if it's an electric field or something. But it's an appropriate word. I like the word field, because the moment you enter a team or a department or an organization, you can feel it. You can feel that what kind of energy flows in that organization. Look at the first field. They say, you know, it's a conversation. So how conversation happens in your company, in your organization, in your department. The first level is called talking nice. First level is called talking nice. So in an organization, if you see that most people are just very nice to each other, when they meet, what are they talking about? They're talking about how nice the weather is outside, right? Or what happened in the football match yesterday night, or those pleasant things. Mostly you hear, yes, sir, noted, sir, and all those nice things. That means this is just talking nice. Nobody is saying anything. You know, people are talking, people are not even hearing what you said. Half of them don't even hear what you say. And even if they hear what you say, you remember the attitude that I already know everything? So when I walk into a company, I already know. I already know you, I already know your intention, and I already know what you are going to do next. So I'm judging you, and I have a judgment about everybody, what is going to work, what is not going to work. In my mind, I'm convinced that IT department will not give me any solution. So when our chief technology officer is talking, and I'm not even listening to him. When he talks, he says, yes, sir. Good idea, sir. Very well done, sir. Thank you. Because in my judgment, it's called downloading. So I've already downloaded everything before I come to the company. There's no open heart, open mind, and open will anymore. That's the first level of conversation, first field of conversation. The second field, and this is a process. You cannot go from first field to the fourth field or third field directly. The second field of conversation, second level of conversation has to come after the first one. The second field of conversation is called talking tough. Here, you express your opinion. You express your opinion. You go and talk straight. But you listen to the person, you hear what other people are saying, but actually you're listening from the outside. You are listening because you're waiting, it's my turn next. So more than what you want to understand other person, more than that you're concerned about what I have to say is more important. In fact, so much so that for you, your viewpoint is so critical and important that you attach so much importance that if anybody counter you, you start to feel as if they have insulted you. So your viewpoint becomes your identity. It's your ego. And so this confrontation start to happen. People start to present counter views, counter opinions, but everybody is worried about what I have to say. Nobody is worried about, they do listen to everything, but they're not worried about what you are saying. There's no inquiry in the mind to understand other person, which happens in the third level, which is called a reflective inquiry or a dialogue. Now here, in a dialogue or reflective inquiry, this is a field which is a beautiful field, right? Everybody understands as if they are buddies, they are friends, right? They are in sync with each other. They understand not only what the person is saying, but they also understand the values they are coming from, the feelings behind the message they want to deliver, right? And you can see through them. It's like, I'm sure each one of you would have gotten this experience, but in one of the companies I used to work, we were 5 of us in the training team, 5 of us. And this company, I didn't know before, but this company was pretty well known for its training. A lot of people used to join this company just because they know that this company is very good in training and development. And all this was created in a small room on the 12th floor. And the 5 of us who used to do it, we had such a friendship among us. We knew each other, we would joke with each other, we know each other very, very well. We are proud of, if you win, I'm so happy. And we are still in touch, we are still very best friends, right? So I'm sure each one of you would have had those kind of groups you have worked with. Yeah, you are very happy and you had the best output in those groups, right? So that's the level of conversation. That happens that if you enter a department with this level, you see one person has started the sentence, the other person is finishing it, right? So That's called reflective inquiry. The third level, which is the dialogue. And the last level is the ultimate. This is here when you see the future, on the fourth level. And the fourth level is called the generative creativity, collective creativity or generative flow. As I said, it's called collective because it's not for in one individual. It's a collective, it's a team. Overall, together, they are able to do it. I don't know if how many of you would have seen, if not in live, but on television, that a group of aeroplanes, they fly together and they do acrobatics in the air together, all of them, right? And you might wonder, how is it possible? The pilots are not connected with any Bluetooth device, right? Or these aeroplanes are not linked together through any physical medium. But all of the pilots are doing it together. How? You might think that maybe they have practiced it too much. But I want to tell you the rule is if one aeroplane crash, everybody will crash. And they don't practice this. How is that possible? Or for example, you might have seen on the Discovery Channel or Animal Planet, there's a group of fish inside the ocean. And they're swimming together, like in the shape of a big fish. Right? They don't get training, but how they are able to do it. Or a flock of birds flying in the sky, in a V formation. How do they do that? What happened? And many examples, synchronized swimmers. So many examples. That's a stage, the level 4 stage, where everybody gets connected into in a space. And that collective space is called generative flow. By the way, MIT has a case study from Lagos. That's a case study about June, July, August in 2014 when Ebola virus came to Nigeria. I don't know if you might remember about how it was reported here, but in international press, that period was reported in a very negative manner. I remember reading a headline in an electronic, e-magazine, European magazine, and it says, "The story of Nigeria is over." In the end, they put a question mark always, but that's a statement. And internationally, everybody assumes that once Ebola goes to Lagos, there's no way. There's just no way. Because all those population, the kind of city it is, and all of those. And whatever technology that existed at that time in the US or France or internationally, I don't think it was made accessible to Nigeria at that time. So there's a very interesting thing, and look at what the governor of Lagos at that time called Mr. Fashola Babatunde, how he and his team got together. And the approach they took was something called as a list approach. They made list of all the passengers. If they've flown in that plane, and then for each passenger make another list, and then for each passenger make another list. And they rolled up their sleeves and they went to everybody and checked the temperature and checked symptoms. This is how they were going. And everybody thought, what are they doing? Nobody thought that they can contain a virus like Ebola by making lists. But they did it. By September 2014, World Health Organization declared Nigeria as Ebola-free country. 3 months. I'm just giving you this example because it's something is a common knowledge. But I personally know many people here in Lagos that they have turned around the organization. Adipeju Jeoba, another lady I know in Yaba, a qualified lawyer, she could not understand why a woman should die during a childbirth. Something that people take as normal. It happens. People say, yeah, it happens. She said, why? And she went on and together with her team, small team, I've gone to her office in Yaba with my daughter so that I can also get inspiration. And she was very nice, young lady, right? And she went on to this work with passion. She made this mother's kit, and which became popular in about 25 countries. And when Barack Obama invited her to address in the White House, she went to address with full conviction. She's telling in the White House, this is how you should do it. She became a star. And that simple girl in Yaba I met, I was, wow. I called her in ICO to address one of the gatherings once, and she's fire. She fired up because that conviction, that passion, that open will, open heart, and open mind. With that, you can achieve anything which is possible. And this is what organizations like, good organizations, when you go and see, Infosys, Google, if you go to visit their office, you see how they cultivate these kind of things in their office, so that people work with an open mind, creativity, and a lot of teamwork, generative teamwork, and when this happens, your future will just emerge in front of you. See you can sense the future, what's happening, and you are right in time to respond to the emerging future. So thank you very much. I think if we have some time for taking some questions. Hold on to that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumar, for your talk. I took a couple of notes, and there were a few takeaways for me there. Firstly, you reinforced what is motherhood for most of us, that learning is a continuous journey that we're all going to be experiencing all through our lives. And we learn from two main models, from the past and also from envisioning the future, from the emerging future as it evolves around ourselves. Took us through the transition from functional roles to higher competency levels in our respective organizations. And the fact that leadership now has different facets, including role modeling and other aspects of future state leadership. I think we have time for a few questions and comments.
Okay. My name is Dr. Tsunde Ayeye. I run a company called International Facility Services, a group of companies that provide service in the built-up environment. We're those guys that will have gotten a memo the 2 times that your power went off. Those are the kind of things that we do, right? Well, I have a question. Thank you so much, but I struggle to fully understand some of those concepts in the light of my own current reality. And I'm wondering whether I am alone in this reality or not. Maybe there are other people, or maybe you can, provide some insight. The challenge we face right now is that we don't even have the leaders to grow. The rapidity of staff turnover, the challenge of the young guys, the very young people are extremely impatient. To now start teaching them to be working from inside and be empathetic. They 1 minute they're in, the next minute they're out. And so that seemed to be the biggest challenge we grapple with on the people management side, that I'm struggling to say, okay, I take in all of this, but I don't even have the people I want to teach or the people I want to lead in my organization. I don't know whether there are solutions in that regard so that we are able to apply all of these beautiful interventions. Thank you.
Without missing words, I would say this is one of the greatest breakfast sessions I've attended. I don't know, maybe because it's my area as well. So I must commend Akshat Kumar for what he has said. I'm very glad that he's wearing Nigerian African attire. I was just telling the chair that now at last I think we've got it when he was stepping in. Now we have something that is suited to our own environment, right? Nobody should tell us what to do. We have to see what works for us. And whatever it is, we have universals. Whatever it is, we have to domesticate. We have to apply within the context of what we are doing. And you can see the examples he gave about Ebola and everything. Let no one deceive you. Intellect or whatever it is does not reside within any particular race. We are all humans. And if you have that confidence, you see the difference we can make. Let me not talk too much. Thank you. I just want to commend you.
Morning. My name is Ibukun Konu from Streamstars and Cone. Thank you very much for the talk. I think the people that spoke before me have covered you in glorious praises. And as we say in Nigeria, I'll stand on the existing protocol. My question has to do with the interior condition of the intervenor. What would you recommend, or what steps would you recommend basically for an organization to check itself? Because as you say, charity begins at home, to check itself and ensure that it has that readiness to take on, the new challenges as you've set out. Because from what you seem to tell us here is what people say, like, culture eats strategy for lunch every day. So how does the organization, how can it measure the type of culture that it has so it knows where it is and it knows what it needs to do to change before it can now start to, access these solutions that you have laid out so beautifully? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Speaker, that was a good presentation. And I think it's very relevant for the time we find ourselves, not just in Nigeria, but globally. I also want to appreciate ICO for making this possible. And I also want to appreciate the management, the Executive Secretary, and everyone in the chamber. My question is simple. Is the emergence of AI. And the question will be, how does this impact, considering the 3 C's you mentioned that that's going to, fashion the way the future will be? It's really an organization that is trying to build the future now. So the question is, what is the impact or the role of AI with respect to the curiosity? Because like we all know, people are not as curious as they used to be. And to the creativity. Because now I can type in whatever on AI and it will give me 1 million images of the same thing. So I don't really need to think through. I can pick in the matter of minutes and seconds. And how does that impact, the creativity of an organization? And the final one will be the courage. How will an organization position itself to be courageous to manage these changes that are inevitable? Thank you so much.
My name is Elvis. I work with Buff and Company Insurance Brokers. I want to firstly say thank you very much, sir, for delivering that very astounding lecture. My question, although the good sir over here has, touched a bit of it, he talked about turnover rate in staff, young. He made very particular mention of young people. I wanted to ask, do you have any particular advice to the young people now who find themselves stuck in organizations that do not want to embrace change or creativity? Let it not look like we are running. Are you with me? Let's see how young people can be advised to manage the environment, especially when they come in with creativity, they come in with energy and initiative. But the older people are stuck with the successes of the past to embrace that future and embrace that, intelligent creativity. So do you have any advice for us? And so that we don't run. Thank you. Anymore.
I think I would just like to respond to all the questions. Thank you very much for the good words you said about, and I'm glad that you liked this presentation. To respond to some of these comments and questions, I would like to start from the gentleman, sorry, what's your name? Mr. Rotimi. Mr. Rotimi's question, and then I'll come to other questions. The question that he asks is that with the emergence of artificial intelligence, how it's going to impact the business and society overall. It is a very important question because the artificial intelligence is going to have the most profound impact. You know, in the history of our human race, we have never seen a disruption like this that is going to happen. We are faced now with it. The question that philosophers used to discuss and debate had very little consequences before now. You know, but now the same question is in the hand of engineers. And therefore, it has a deadline and it has to be answered. Let me give you a concrete example of that. You know, for so many, it's a classical textbook question that when they have self-driven cars, right? So if the car is going and all of a sudden two small kids come on the road to pick up a ball or something, and what should the car do? The car can either run over and kill the kids, or the car can just slide through the cliff and kill the owner of the car. What should they do? Philosophers can debate it, and respect to whatever they conclude has very little relevance because it's in the debates. But when it comes to the engineers, they have to program the car. And whichever side they program it on, it's a certainty that that's going to happen. And you know, so all those ethical and moral questions are now practical questions for engineers. And so artificial intelligence, another issue with artificial intelligence is that right now they say that, okay, artificial intelligence will not be able to take over human, you know, what we do. And because they have this limitation or that limitation. But we know this is just the beginning, right? Now, what do we do in this kind of scenario has to do with more of self-awareness. Because it is predicted that a lot of jobs, you know, like doctors and all of those jobs might even become redundant and new kind of jobs may arise. New model of businesses will come up. And it will be required for us to be able to reinvent ourselves and our business models every 5 years, 10 years, which is almost like most difficult thing. What can help us in this, to come up with this difficult situation is an ability, a flexibility, an agility to reinvent ourselves faster and change and adapt faster. And that will happen with a lot of self-awareness. You know, coming back to the questions Mr. Tunde asked about the issues that leaders face of high level of attrition of the staff, of the youngest staff especially. And it's not just him, it's most of the leaders have the similar issue. As you said, you don't know if others face it. You're not alone. But when we ask the young ones, right? The reason is, for them is, so for the leaders, the problem lies with the staff. It's they who don't stay. But when you ask them, they say it's the people, I think they're too old. They are getting conventional. They don't have risk appetite. They don't accept innovation, creativity. And that's why we want to change. So the advice to you, what is saying is, the only advice is you don't get old. Retain that curiosity, retain that creativity, and retain that courage. And you're fine. So the interior conditions, you know, the presentation that I was making is about the 4 levels. It's for self-check. So you can right now check where your organization is. Is it on level 1, where they are just polite, nice talking? Or is it level 2, which is confrontation? Or is it, when you go to your company, you see what is happening in the meetings, how people are coming across and talking to each other. So basically that slide which I showed is the answer to what you're asking, is how you can diagnose it. What is required is open mind, open heart, and open will. And that starts from the leader. That starts from the top brass first. Because you can't expect others to do it. Any intervention which requires money is the easiest one. You might argue with me, that you say, what are you talking in this economy? What I'm trying to say is that if you want to buy some new technology, new bots to overcome, to brace yourself, to equip your organization, whatever you can buy from money is an easier than the intervention which requires change in human behavior. Because you can't just change human behavior so easily. If you could buy that, you would have bought it by now, right? So in order to change human behavior, you have to start from yourself and role model it. As leaders, 90% of your KPI is role modeling. So I hope that gives you the answer. Thank you, sir. Thank you.